Oh, hello.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Good
Afternoon for
morning.
some of you.
Hello.
So glad you can be with us here today. And yeah, got some regulars and looks like a few new folks. But Dan in Virginia, and Delhi, and Deborah D, Mabel in Massachusetts, Martha. I'm seeing an email address. B Galloway. There you are. Brian McLaughlin, Carol in Connecticut, Trish, Kay Bothan, Sheila G in Florida, Kevin E, Emily, Dennis, how's it going in Victoria? Sarah in Texas, and Michelle and Karen out in Oregon. Good to see you again. Christina D, Robert D, Bonnie out in Idaho, Arlene B, Carolyn also out in Idaho, Bob in Maryland, Jamie, Susan G, Barbie in Kentucky. Numbers, hello Numbers, thanks for joining us. Gwen F, the Glazers, nice to see you both here today. Ann L, Bob out in Massachusetts, Renata, LMG, Fred, DC Labor Corps representing today, of course, Jim in New York City. Um, and who else do we have here? Yeah, Becky K and Janet's with us today as well. Fantastic. Sid and Victoria and Cricket. Glad to have you back. Um, we are so happy to be here for the sixth of 7 days in this week, where the Labor Heritage Foundation is co-hosting with Carpe Diem Arts, the Daily Antidote of Song. And we've had an extraordinary week, starting off with Charlie King and then Peggy Seeger and Susan McNellis and Lucy Murphy, and yesterday Wyra Forster. And today we're very excited to have with us Steve and Peter Jones, who are extraordinarily creative and gifted and committed progressive men, good men, brothers who actually love each other. That's a beautiful thing all by itself. Um, and really talented musicians, both of them, astonishingly gifted writers and performers, and both woven deeply into the fabric of the labor heritage community in the United States and in the greater DC area. Peter, a former executive director of the Labor Heritage Foundation. Steve, a musician with many hats that he wears, one of them being primary arranger for the DC Labor Corps. So welcome, fellas. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Good to be here.
Um, and we still have a few new folks coming in, but I think we'll just we'll get it going here. And hello to everybody out on Facebook joining us. Thanks so much for being here with the Daily Antidote of Song. And thanks to Carpe Diem Arts and to the Labor Heritage Foundation and to Elise Bryant, Executive Director of the Labor Heritage Foundation, for signing up for this week. So glad to be here. You have a song for us.
Yeah, sure.
You talking to us?
Yes, Peter and Steve. Yes. The guys with the guitars. Yes, talking to you because the one's conspicuously standing there waiting to go.
Sure. The song we're going to do is the Gallo Song, and it's one. Steve and I were both boycott organizers with the United Farm Workers Union back in the '70s, and so this is a fairly easy song to pick up. And the chorus. You want to do the chorus?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
If it's from Modesto, it's a Gallo Wine. You got to take that bottle back, and you cannot drink it until Gallo signs. You got to take that bottle back. So,
Cool.
That's the chorus. And it'll come around 4 or 5 times. You can join us and sing each time we do it.
Beautiful. Do you mind running that chorus once more? It's a Saturday morning.
One more time. It's a Saturday morning. And this is right. This is Antidote of Song, right? So that means it's antidote against something that we're trying to resist, or we're trying to push back against. It could be a plague. It could be. So we need a little extra on a Saturday morning. Okay.
if it's from Modesto, it's a Gallo wine. You got to take that bottle back, and you cannot drink it until Gallo signs. You got to take that bottle back.
2, 3, 4.
was having dinner the other night with the Bishop of Idaho. He served roast beef and mashed potatoes and a bottle of Paisano. And I said, Paisano is a Gallo wine. You got to take that bottle back. And you cannot drink it until Gallo signs. You got to take that bottle back.
Well, I was walking through this alley the other night. These were the words I heard. Give me all your money, cause I got to go buy a bottle of Thunderbird. So I said, Thunderbird is a Gallo wine. You got to take that bottle back. And you cannot drink it until Gallo signs. You got to take that bottle back.
And I see that some of the folks out there should probably be able to remember the 70s. I was at a concert the other night when I felt the tap on my arm. I took the joint, but I refused the bottle of Boone's Farm. And I said, Boone's Farm is a Gallo wine. You got to take that bottle back. And you cannot drink it until Gallo signs. You got to take that bottle back.
And I was lying in bed the other night, talking with my friend named Jane. I brought out a bottle of baby oil. She brought out Andre Champagne. And I said, Andre Champagne is a Gallo wine. You got to take that bottle back. And you cannot drink it until Gallo signs. You got to take that bottle back. So when friends and family and relatives too take Gallo off the rack, don't be afraid to step right up and tell them to take it back. You tell them if it's from Modesto, it's a Gallo wine. You got to take that bottle back. And you cannot drink it until Gallo signs. You got to take that bottle back.
Yay!
Yay! That's awesome. I had no idea all those wines were Gallo products. That's it's disturbing that Thunderbird is still available.
On several levels.
Oh, there's like vintage Thunderbird.
And it's so quintessential Jones Brothers. It really is. It's one of my favorite songs. But you guys, together and separately, are just masters of rhyme and rhythm and the parody of taking, other repurposed songs and turning them into something else as well as original songs. So I had a gig or something, and I called Peter. I said, Peter, I need words to the Impossible Dream. Can you do that for me? And literally, like 15 minutes later, he goes, here, how about this? Will this work for you? So yeah, and you all were doing this with the farm workers. I see the poster behind you.
Right, there you go. Yeah, actually, one of the things with the Farm Workers Union was that they used music a lot. And, both in Spanish and in English, and people wrote stuff and they wrote parodies, and it was just a vibrant part of the union.
Wow. How did the two of you get involved in trade union work and get involved as cultural workers in the labor movement?
Well, it was the farm workers. I mean, part of what happened was that I joined the boycott here in Washington, D.C., and a couple of weeks after I joined, I had some downtime. I pulled out my guitar, and the director of the boycott here, who was Gil Padilla, who was the secretary-treasurer of the union, said, you didn't tell me you played the guitar. And I said, well, I don't really. I just know a few chords. And he says, I see you. You've got the guitar. You're playing it. You're bringing it to the picket line. So I had to learn, some of the union songs, and that's kind of how things started.
Yeah.
And then Peter dragged me along. I was in music school, but it seemed like it was more fun to sing songs on the picket line than play scales on a viola in a practice room alone for 5 hours. And one time, it was beautiful. I remember this day. They had a fake coffin, and there was a worker who'd been killed out in California. So they're walking around a picket line with 30 people in front of the giant food. They'd not been able to have very much success shutting the store down, but this time they had a coffin draped in black. The 30 picketers were all marching, saying, please don't shop here for the farm workers. And I'm singing We Shall Overcome. Nobody walked in the store. And I'm going, wow, that was really, it was a moving moment for me. And so I got dragged into.
Wow, fantastic. And Peter, you are a former executive director of the Labor Heritage Foundation. How did you get involved with this organization that hosts the Great Labor Arts Exchange and does so much other great work in the U.S. and beyond?
Well, when I was working for the Farm Workers Union, Joe Glazer, who was one of the founders, or really the main founder in many ways of the, basically, he came and did a fundraiser concert for the Farm Workers Union, and I, at least theoretically, was organizing the concert. But to be honest, Joe did most of the organizing, and he was very good at it. And so after we left the Farm Workers Union and came back to this area, Joe knew that we did labor songs. And when he started kind of the precursor of the Arts Exchange, which was called the Song Exchange, he invited like 14 people to come. And because we did labor songs, he invited us. And so we were there at the first precursor of the Great Labor Arts Exchange.
Wow, that's cool. And were you a viola major at conservatory, Steve? Was that your primary?
I guess it was composition, and viola was my main instrument, but I kind of did a lot of guitar and a lot of piano, but that was that's what you play in the orchestra. They won't let you plug in a Martin D18 in the orchestra.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I've come to know you mostly as a pianist, and a quite gifted one. So this is news to me after almost 20 years of knowing you that you started out with viola. That's pretty wild.
Yeah. No, it was and then I found the blues in high school, and I did blues on viola for a while. But it's fun. You can do different things with pianos and guitars. So I've kind of drifted over.
Yeah. Peter has a song that I think Elise wanted to ask about, one that has traveled all over the world.
Yes, and someone put it in the chat room already. It's Kilkelly, Ireland. And I know, Joe, you've done traveling in Ireland. You have your own Kilkelly story. But I can't remember why I was looking it up, but I was online and I found like 15 different versions of it. And they were all by artists from Ireland. And I thought, that's the Jones Brothers song. But Steve owned up that really was Peter's song. But the song is, tell us about the song, the history of the song.
Well, back around late 70s, that my mother was visiting her mother, and my grandmother said, "There's some stuff up in the attic of your father's, and I'm just getting ready to throw it out, and why don't you go take a look to see if there's anything in there that you want to keep?" And my mother went into this trunk and found these letters from Ireland that when our great-great-grandfather came from Ireland, he saved the letters that his family sent to him. And my sister, who I believe is actually on the call here, took those letters and she actually typed them out and transcribed them. And so at a certain point, I looked at them and I was just really very moved by the letters. They were kind of, newsy letters, but you could kind of sense the drama behind them. And so one day I sat down, and I wasn't writing that kind of stuff because we do mostly political and labor stuff. But I sat down and with the letters and kind of wrote out phrases that I thought were particularly meaningful, and I made them rhyme, and it fell together. And I actually, when I first wrote it, I thought nobody outside of the family would be interested. And so it's been it's been a wonderful thing, but at the same time, just totally unexpected that it has gotten the kind of response that it has.
That's amazing. It's a beautiful song, and I knew the song before I knew you. I had a trad Irish band in Seattle in the late '90s, and we used to do a version of that song. It really captures something. And I would say, as somebody who's a dual U.S. Irish citizen, I would say that it is very political, but in the most beautiful of ways, because it invites compassion and curiosity. And it's beautiful. Steve, you've written musicals, several of them. One in particular that I've seen staged, and I know there's been a couple of different recordings released of, takes place in Detroit. And that also relates to some family history, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess I was starting to fall under the spell of Elise Bryant, who has a real deep belief in the power of theater. And I play a little bit with theater, but I love the 3 minute song. But Elise Bryant, at the time, was from Detroit and here in Washington, D.C., teaching at the National Labor College. And we were looking for a project to work on together. And Peter, again, unearthed some family history. We have a great uncle, Lewis Bradford, who we didn't really know this story growing up, but we heard later on that was involved in Detroit in the 1930s. He left his job as minister of a church and was actually killed inside the factory, the River Rouge plant, at the height of the union struggles. So I mentioned this to Elise, and she said her father worked in the River Rouge factory for 40 years. So we found the project that we would try to work on together. So that was kind of the beginnings of a very dramatic and very interesting and fun project.
Beautiful. And tell us again the name of the musical.
It's Forgotten. It's the name of the musical, Forgotten.
And Steve, there's also a little bit of the history that I think you should share about what happened when you went and asked the Detroit mortician's office, that's not the name of it, about the murder of Lewis Bradford in the plant and what you found out from that.
Yeah, well, a historian, Nelson Lichtenstein, I chatted with him a little bit about some of the details of Detroit at this time, and very little was known about Lewis Bradford's murder. He was, the Ford Motor Company in 1937 said this is an accident, and the family should leave town and not ask questions. So just right then and there, you kind of have this feeling. There was kind of a deep grief in that side of the family. Peter and I didn't know the story growing up, but all of his 17 grandkids knew the story well. He was assassinated by Henry Ford's goons. But in Detroit of 1937, it was classified as an accident. The newspapers had 5 obituaries in 5 different papers, and they said this is an accident. But in 2001, as we were doing the research, Nelson Lichtenstein said, go to the medical examiner, get the autopsy. Who would do that in researching a musical? In fact, one of the music reviews said this is the first time writing a musical review, I actually chatted with the medical examiner who runs the morgue. And so I actually went to the morgue. It was actually a fascinating time. And the current medical examiner classified it as a homicide that was never investigated. So when the NPR did a piece on this, of course, they focused on that part of it. Bob Edwards did a fabulous interview, went out to 13 million people. And so it snowballed. People were just kind of curious. And we were told at the outset, don't talk about red baiting. The labor movement doesn't want to hear about red baiting. And we were also told in Detroit, do not put down Henry Ford. He's like George Washington in Detroit. But when we got there and started doing radio shows and doing the publicity, Alicia and I found people kept saying, we are so happy to have this brought out. We're hungry to tell this story. My family has a very similar story of the 1930s when they built the Union. So it was very, it was an interesting time.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow. I mean, I've known both of you for almost 2 decades, and I still didn't know the full measure of that story. That's astonishing. Yeah, when a reviewer has to go have a conversation with, the local medical examiner, that's that's pretty amazing.
That review, I have to say, the title of that review is "Dead Can Sing." Dead can sing.
And it wasn't the Grateful Dead they were talking about.
No, they probably would have added something about singing out of tune if it were.
There's a lot of humor you can find in when you get to it. It's a tragedy, but I think with the help of Elise, we found various moments of humor and deep love. You know, he has a deep love. Reverend Bradford, who dies, and his wife, we have some love letters between them, and they found their way into a song, and it's one of the lovely moments of the show. So there's a lot of different things that come in and out. Yeah.
That's amazing. I've seen the show staged, and it's remarkable. So we've got some time here. I'd love to cycle back to the Gallo song right at the end, just so people can hear that and sing that song again. But is there something else you'd like to give us today? Is there something else you'd like to sing for us before we go back to the Gallo song?
Do your song?
Well, we have a song about voting that we could do that's kind of relevant, because right now where people are talking about Georgia and Texas and Florida trying to suppress the vote. So this is a song that's just again, a very easy chorus. I would walk through a wall of COVID to vote. I would cross the wide ocean in a rickety boat. I would slog through a hurricane, totally soaked. I would walk through a wall of COVID to vote. Why don't you try that along with us? I would walk through a wall
of COVID.
I would cross the wide ocean. I would cross the wide ocean in a rickety. I would slog through a hurricane. I would slog through a hurricane, totally soaked. I would walk through a wall of COVID to vote. And the governor of Texas doesn't want you to vote. You stand in line for 10 hours till you get heat stroke. He gives one lousy drop box for 4 million folks. The governor of Texas doesn't want you to vote. But I would walk through a wall of COVID to vote. I would cross the wide ocean in a rickety boat. I would slide through a hurricane, totally soaked. I would walk through a wall of COVID to vote. And the governor of Florida fills folks with fear. You'll stand in line for you'll need armed security at the drop box this year. And if you don't pay your fine, you lose your vote, it is clear. The governor of Florida fills folks with fear. And I would walk through a wall of COVID to vote. I would cross the wide ocean in a rickety boat. I would slide through a hurricane, totally soaked. I would walk through a wall of COVID to vote. And the governor of Georgia, he purges the vote. You miss one little hyphen, the vote's thrown out, no joke. Over 1 million purged, mostly poor working folk. The governor of Georgia, he purges the vote. But I would walk through a wall of COVID to vote. I would cross the wide ocean in a rickety. I would slog through a hurricane, totally soaked. I would walk through a wall of COVID to vote. And sometimes the people can't take anymore. We see the 1% looting the store. Don't let Fox guard the old henhouse door. Sometimes the people can't take anymore. And I remember Medgar Evers, he died in this fight. And Fannie Lou Hamer, how she sacrificed. I'd be damned if some fascist gonna take away my rights. I remember Medgar Evers died in this fight. And I would walk through a wall of COVID to vote. I would cross the wide ocean in a rickety boat. I would slog through a hurricane, totally soaked. I would walk through a wall of COVID to vote.
Yay! And you have to be in the car with Peter and Steve going somewhere, because they'll start riffing with each other and they'll start rhyming things. You just say something and they'll start making a rhyme out of it, and pretty soon there's like an entire song with the two of them going back and forth, coming up with a more clever line and a more clever rhyme with things that don't really rhyme and don't really match together. I love it. I just love it.
Detroit, road trip, Detroit.
That's awesome. That's awesome. For those of you who may not have been with us earlier this week, either on Facebook or in the Zoom room, our co-host this week is Elise Bryant, Executive Director of the Labor Heritage Foundation, and also Director of the DC Labor Chorus. And Labor Heritage Foundation has an annual event coming up in June, the Great Labor Arts Exchange. And I was hoping that Elise could tell us just a little bit about that and how folks can find information about the Arts Exchange.
Yes, you can go to www.laborheritage.org, and right there on the front page, you just scroll down a little bit and you'll see the registration for the Great Labor Arts Exchange. And this is the event that brought me and Joe Jenks and the Jones brothers and Lucy Murphy. And I remember the first time I met Pete Seeger at the Great Labor Arts Exchange, and Bernice Johnson Reagan. And the first one I went to, Reverend James Orange was leading us in song. And I walked in the room, and I couldn't imagine anything more boring than 4 days of labor songs, I'll be honest. So I was like, yeah, whatever. And I got in there, and he was leading the songs, and people were singing in 4-part harmony. And it occurred to me that I had found my new tribe. And every year there's more new people coming, and people coming from not just the United States, but Canada and Mexico now, because we had to go online, and we'll be online again this year. So you're welcome to join us.
Well, and how did you get roped into the Arts Exchange? How did you find out about it?
Saul Schneiderman. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the first time I met Saul, I found out that he'd had a pretty heavy hand in getting an elementary school, I think in Tacoma Park, named Mary Harris Mother Jones Elementary School. And that was the first thing I knew about him, and I realized this was a man I needed to know. Anybody who could get an elementary school named after Mother Jones was somebody I needed to know.
And the first labor landmark in Maryland is at the house that Mother Jones lived in, a block away from where we hold the Arts Exchange at what was called the George Meany Center, National Labor College, now the Tommy Douglas Center, ATU's Tommy Douglas Center. And up that street is the Mother Jones, the house, the land where the Mother Jones house. Wasn't her house.
And I got to know Ann Feeney through the Great Labor Arts Exchange and through AFM Local 1000. And I have to own I'm a little choked up as I remind people that last Saturday, a week ago today, on May 1st, on May Day, Ann Feeney's remains were buried at the Mount Olive Cemetery next to Mother Jones. And I cannot think of a more fitting final resting place for her earthly remains than to be interred next to Mother Jones. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And this is the kind of stuff that happens through the Labor Heritage Foundation, through the Labor Heritage community. There's directories of labor landmarks and significant historic sites throughout the United States and parts of Canada. And for people who are interested in finding ways to further celebrate working class history and build a better working class future. This is an extraordinary gathering, a life-changing gathering for many people. So I encourage you to check out the website and get involved in the Arts Exchange this year. Elise, thank you for all of your work and all of your leadership over the years. You have become the person that welcomes people in, and you keep expanding the tent and making it bigger and making more room for more people. And that's an amazing thing.
Thank you. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. Steve and Peter, do you mind singing the Gallo Song once more and taking us out?
Sure, no problem.
Sure.
Now that everybody knows it.
Peter and Holly host an annual sing-along party during the holiday season, usually in December. And because of COVID-19, we weren't able to have it last year. And I am, pardon the expression, jonesing for a sing-along at Peter's house.
Someday soon.
Okay.
So here's your Jones antidote. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
It's from Modesto, it's a Gallo Wine. You gotta drink that bottle now. And you cannot drink it until Gallo signs. You got to take that bottle back. I was having dinner the other night with the Bishop of Idaho. He served roast beef and mashed potatoes and a bottle of Paisano. And I said, Paisano is a Gallo wine. You got to take that bottle back. And you cannot drink it until Gallo signs. You got to take that bottle back.
And I was walking through this alley the other night. These were the words I heard. Give me all your money, cause I got to go buy a bottle of Thunderbird. And I said, Thunderbird is a Gallo wine. You got to take that bottle back. And you cannot drink it until Gallo signs. You got to take that bottle back.
I was at a concert the other night when I felt the tap on my arm. I took the joint, but I refused a bottle of Boone's Farm. And I said, Boone's Farm is a Gallo wine. You got to take that bottle back. And you cannot drink it until Gallo signs. You got to take that bottle back.
And I was lying in bed the other night, talking with my friend named Jane. I brought out a bottle of baby oil, and she brought out Andre Champagne. So I said, Andre Champagne is a Gallo wine. You got to take that bottle back. And you cannot drink it until Gallo signs. You got to take that bottle back. So when friends and family and relatives do take Gallo off the rack, don't be afraid to step right up and tell them to take it back. You tell them if it's from Modesto, it's a Gallo wine. You got to take that bottle back. And you cannot drink it until Gallo signs. You got to take that bottle back.
Yay!
Yay.
Woo!
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Brothers Jones, Steve and
thank you.
Peter.
Thank
Peter
you.
and Steve.
Thank you, Joe.
Not interchangeable, but equally remarkable.
Nice, Joe. Nice. Good one.
And Elise, thanks so much for joining us. Joe Rossi, thanks so much for all of your work for, into the 14th month, I think, of helping coordinate and running Daily Antidote of Song, Carpe Diem Arts. Thank you so much. If you want to make donations, there are links both here in the Zoom room and out on Facebook. Thank you so much for being here today to help us celebrate Labor Heritage Week at the Daily Antidote of Song. Aaron Geyer, thank you so much for doing a great job with tech today. Everybody give it up for Aaron. We'll see you again tomorrow. Maria Dunn, a wonderful Canadian artist, singer-songwriter and labor artist from Edmonton, Alberta, will be joining us tomorrow. So looking forward to that. And Dan and Virginia, thanks. Goodbye. Thanks for being here. Deli and Deborah and Mabel and Bob, great to see you. Kate.
And Emily
Brian.
Jones, one of those Jones people whose hair doesn't turn gray. She's over there. I see you, Emily.
Emily.
Nice. Trish and Sheila in Florida. Kevin, Emily, yeah, there you are. And Sarah in Texas. And Karen out in Oregon. And Christina in Seattle. Bonnie out in Idaho. Arlene in California. So great to have you with us. And Carolyn and Bob out in Maryland, and Sue S. The Glazers, thanks so much for being here, and Fred, DC Labor Corps, thanks for representing. Jim, New York City, thanks for being here. Susan McNellis, thanks for leading a wonderful song for us on Wednesday. Susan S. Nancy N. with your cool curly Irish cow. I'm going to see some of those in October. It looks like I'll be able to go to Ireland. Sally G., thanks for being here. Lisa E., Al, thanks for joining us today. Sandra M. and Becky and Rosemary and Carol in Connecticut. Jane in Silver Spring, thanks for being here. So glad to have you. Annette P., Jamie D. in Victoria, BC, thanks for representing. Aloysius, thanks for joining us. And LMG, thanks for being here. If I missed anybody, so sorry. Thanks for being with us today for Labor Heritage Week with the Daily Antidote of Song. We're going to sign off on Facebook. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Daily Antidote of Song.